At exactly 2:17 in the morning, your phone buzzes on the nightstand, a harsh vibration against the silent darkness of your room. You grope for it, half asleep, squinting at the glowing screen. Décaillé, it's your own name, your own number. A cold jolt, sharper than any alarm, shoots through you. This has to be a joke, right? A glitch. Your heart starts pounding a frantic rhythm against your ribs. With a trembling thumb, you answer the call, and the voice on the other end is yours. It's shaky, breathless, and filled with a terror you've never known. It says, "Don't go to the office tomorrow. Whatever you do, don't go." Click. The line goes dead. You sit bolt upright, the blankets pooled around your waist. The silence in the room is now heavy, suffocating. Don't go to the office. What does that even mean? You try to rationalize it. Maybe a friend is pulling a prank using a spoofing app. It's elaborate, sure, but possible. You check your call log. There it is. An incoming call from your number at 2:17 a.m. Duration: 7 seconds. You try calling back. The line is busy. Of course it is. You're calling yourself. The absurdity of the situation almost makes you laugh, but the fear is a cold knot in your stomach. The voice, it sounded so genuinely terrified. It sounded just like you, but a version of you who had seen something awful. Sleep is impossible now. You spend the rest of the night pacing your apartment, replaying those 7 seconds over and over. Don't go to the office tomorrow. You think about your Java normal, boring 9 to 5 at a downtown data analytics firm. What could possibly happen there? A fire drill? A server crash? The warning felt so much more final. As the sun begins to stream through your blinds, casting long shadows across the floor, you have a decision to make. Do you listen to a bizarre, impossible phone call? Or do you dismiss it as a dream-fueled prank and go about your normal day? Every logical part of your brain is screaming that it's nonsense, but the chilling echo of your own terrified voice is a powerful argument. You decide to split the difference. You call in, sick, citing a sudden migraine. Your boss is understanding, if a little annoyed. You spend the morning glued to the news, scrolling through local alerts, your heart leaping at every siren you hear in the distance. Nothing. The hours tick by with agonizing slowness. 9 a.m., the start of your shift, comes and goes. 10 a.m., 11 a.m., you start to feel foolish. You've wasted a sick day because of a prank. You're about to turn off the TV and try to salvage your day when a breaking news alert flashes across the screen. An incident downtown, a structural collapse, and the address they show. It's your office building. Your blood runs cold. You watch, frozen, as the live footage shows the catastrophic scene. The west wing of the building, where your desk is located, has completely panicked. First responders are swarming the area, but the anchor's voice is grim, talking about the unlikelihood of survivors in that section. Your section. You would have been there. You would have been at your desk, sipping your morning coffee, right at the epicenter of the collapse. The phone call wasn't a prank. It was a warning. But who sent it? How? The questions spiral in your mind, but they're all drowned out by one overwhelming thought. You should be dead. Suddenly, your phone vibrates again. You snatch it up, your hand shaking so hard you can barely read the screen. It's another call. But this time, it's not from your number. The caller ID is simply unknown. You hesitate for a moment, then answer. Your voice barely a whisper. Hello. The voice that replies is your own, but it's different from the one before. This one is calm, steady, and chillingly familiar. Good, it says. You listened. Stage 1 is complete. Now, for Stage 2, you need to listen to me very carefully, because your life, and many others, depends on what you do next. What do you think is happening? Is it a future self, a parallel universe, or something else? Entirely. Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you want to find out what happens in Stage 2, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you and miss the next part of this story. Thanks for watching. Have you ever had a dream that felt so real, you weren't sure if you were awake or asleep? What if that feeling didn't stop when you opened your eyes? This is the story of James, a regular guy, an accountant who lived by numbers and logic. His world was black and white, predictable, until a Tuesday morning, when color bled into his life in the most terrifying way. It started with a dream. He was running, not from something, but towards something. A lighthouse, standing alone on a cliff, its light cutting through a thick, unnatural fog. He felt an overwhelming urge to reach it, a sense of desperate importance he couldn't explain. But no matter how fast he ran, the lighthouse never got any closer. He woke up with his heart pounding, drenched in sweat. The image of the lighthouse burned into his mind. He shook it off as just a weird dream and went about his day. The next night, the dream returned. The same lighthouse, the same fog, the same desperate run. But this time he heard a sound, a faint, rhythmic beeping, like a distant heart monitor. It grew louder, the harder he ran. He woke up again, the beeping sound still echoing in his ears for a few seconds before fading away. This was getting strange. James, the man of logic, started to feel a crack in his perfectly ordered reality. The third night was the worst. The dream was identical, but the feeling of dread was suffocating. The beeping was now a constant, urgent alarm. He pushed himself harder, his lungs burning, his legs screaming. He felt like if he didn't reach that lighthouse, something terrible would happen. He woke up, not in his bed, but on his living room floor, his running shoes on his feet, caked in mud and sand. He had no memory of putting them on or leaving his apartment. Panic began to set in. That's when his phone buzzed, a new voicemail. He didn't recognize the number, but his hand trembled as he hit play. He put the phone to his ear, and a cold wave washed over him. The voice in the message was his own. It wasn't distorted. It wasn't edited. And it had only one warning. You have 24 hours left. James stood frozen, the phone slipping from his numb fingers. 24 hours until what? He replayed the message again and again. His own voice, calm and clear, delivering a death sentence. Was he going crazy? Was this some elaborate, sick prank? He checked his call history. No outgoing calls were made from his phone. He frantically searched online for answers, typing in dreaming of a lighthouse, sleep running, voicemail from myself. The results were a mix of dream interpretations and psychological forums. Nothing that could explain the cold, hard reality of his own voice on that message. The logical part of his brain was at war with the primal fear coursing through him. He tried to reason it away. Maybe a friend was messing with him using voice cloning software. But who would be so cruel? And how could they know about his dream? The dream he hadn't told anyone about. As the hours ticked by, the world outside his window seemed to darken, the shadows stretching and twisting into unfamiliar shapes. The beeping from his dream started again, a faint pulse in the back of his mind. He knew he couldn't stay there. The lighthouse. The dream wasn't just a dream, it was a map. He had to find it. He grabbed his keys, his wallet, and the phone with its chilling message. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew he had to run, just like in his dream. Not away from something, but towards it, towards the lighthouse, towards the answer. With less than a day left on the clock, James's race against time had just begun. What would you do if you received a message like this? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to find out what happens to James, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss the next part of this story. Thanks for watching. He began seeing moments that hadn't happened yet, places he had never visited. It felt like the future was leaking into the present. It started subtly, like a fleeting sense of déjà vu, but stronger, more vivid. A flicker in the corner of his eye. The scent of rain on a sunny day. The chilling echo of a scream in a silent room. James tried to dismiss it, blaming lack of sleep or too much caffeine. But the glitches intensified. One moment he was pouring coffee in his kitchen. The next he was standing in a deserted, grimy subway tunnel, the air thick with the smell of rust and decay. The distant rumble of a train that wasn't there vibrated through the soles of his shoes. Then, just as quickly, he was back, coffee spilling over the counter, his heart hammering against his ribs. Clocks became his enemies. He'd glance at his watch, see it read 3:15. And look how I When he looked back a second later, the hands would have spun backward to 3:08 or jumped ahead an hour. Digital clocks were worse. They'd flash chaotic, nonsensical numbers, timestamps from years he hadn't lived through yet. 2047, 2031. He saw his own reflection in a shop window, but older, with lines of worry etched deep around his eyes and streaks of gray in his hair. The man in the reflection looked back at him, a silent plea in his gaze, before the image shimmered and was gone, replaced by his own startled, younger face. These weren't just flashes anymore. They were fragments of a life he hadn't led. He'd be walking down a familiar street and suddenly be overwhelmed by the memory of walking that same street with someone he'd never met. Her laughter a phantom sound in his ears. He saw news reports of events that hadn't occurred, a catastrophic dam failure, a breakthrough in fusion energy, the fall of a global corporation. It was terrifying, disorienting. He felt like a ship lost in a temporal storm, tossed between the waves of what was, what is, and what might be. He started documenting everything, scribbling in notebooks, trying to find a pattern, a logic to the madness. Was this a warning? A premonition? Or was his mind simply unraveling, stitch by painful stitch? The visions grew more personal, more specific. He saw himself in a stark, white room, arguing with a woman whose face was always just out of focus. Her voice, though, was filled with a desperate urgency. "You have to remember, James, before it's too late." He heard her cry, the words echoing long after the vision faded. He saw himself frantically working on a complex machine, surrounded by blueprints and sparking wires, his hands moving with a knowledge he didn't possess. He saw moments of profound joy he couldn't place, and moments of soul-crushing despair that felt hauntingly real. Was he going crazy, or was he being shown something? A puzzle laid out across time, with his own life as the board. And the most frightening question of all began to form in his mind. Was the future he was seeing something he could change, or was he just a spectator to his own unwritten destiny? The leaks were becoming a flood, and he was drowning. Have you ever felt that unsettling chill when you're the last one on the platform? That feeling like you're not entirely alone? Well, what if that feeling was real? Today, we're diving into the mystery of the abandoned subway station, a place where the silence is deafening and every shadow seems to move. It all started with a cryptic message, a digital whisper that led me to this forgotten underworld. The message was short, fragmented, but it ended with one specific location, old decommissioned subway line, right under our feet. They say this place was closed down decades ago, after a series of strange incidents. People just disappeared. One day they'd swipe their ticket, walk down the stairs, and never be seen again. The city authorities called it a structural collapse, a tragic accident, but the stories persisted, whispered in late-night diners and online forums. Stories of echoes that weren't your own, of figures seen at the far end of the platform, just beyond the reach of the flickering lights. As I made my way down, the air grew colder, thick with the smell of damp concrete and something else. Something metallic. The usual city noise faded away, replaced by a profound quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your own heartbeat sound like a drum. The platform was just as the legends described. Deserted, decaying, with peeling posters from a bygone era. The lights overhead flickered erratically, casting long, dancing shadows that played tricks on my eyes. It felt like the station itself was breathing, waiting. The message mentioned a final train, one that was never recorded in any official schedule. The ghost train. It was said to arrive at a specific time, but only for those who were looking for it. The message ended with a single warning. Don't get on. Why would someone send me here? Was it a prank, a warning, or an invitation? Every logical instinct told me to turn back, to get back to the safety of the bustling streets above. But curiosity is a powerful force, and the mystery of the vanished was too compelling to ignore. As I walked further down the platform, my footsteps echoed in the vast, empty space. That's when I saw it. Scratched into the grimy wall, almost hidden in the shadows, were names. Dozens of Tim, and next to each name, a date. The dates corresponded with the disappearances. This wasn't just a story, it was A memorial. A tombstone hidden deep underground. The message wasn't just a location, it was a clue. Someone wanted the truth to be found. The question is, what am I supposed to find here? And what happens when the final train arrives? Stay with me as we uncover what's really going on in this abandoned station. Make sure you're subscribed, because this is just the beginning. You won't want to miss what happens next. Have you ever had that strange feeling? That little whisper in the back of your mind telling you something isn't quite right? For James, it started with a dream, or at least he thought it was a dream. Every night, the same eerie sequence played out. He'd wake up in a cold sweat, his heart pounding, and glance at his clock. To 17 a.m. Every single time. At first, he brushed it off. Just a coincidence, right? A weird sleep cycle. But then it started happening when he was awake. He'd be watching a movie, lose track of time, and look at his phone. To 17 a.m. He'd be driving home late from work, the car's dashboard glowing. 2:17 a.m. It was like the number was stalking him, a digital ghost in his life. He tried everything to break the pattern, going to bed earlier, staying up later, even unplugging all the clocks in his house. But it was no use. The number always found him. One night, exhausted and on edge, James sat staring at his phone, waiting. The seconds ticked by. 2:16, 2:17. As if on cue, the screen lit up with an incoming call. Unknown number. His blood ran cold. He'd seen this call before in his nightmares. There was an unspoken rule he had somehow learned in his sleep. Never answer the call at 2:17. His thumb hovered over the red decline button, just as he always did in the dream. But this time was different. He was tired of being afraid, tired of this bizarre curse. He needed answers. So, he took a deep breath and slid his thumb to the green icon. He answered the call. Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence filled the room. No breathing, no static, just a complete void of sound. "Hello?" James whispered, his voice trembling. "Is anyone there?" The silence stretched on, pressing in on him. He could hear his own heartbeat, a frantic drum against the terrifying quiet. He was about to hang up, convinced it was just a prank or a glitch, when a sound finally crackled through the speaker. It wasn't a voice. It was a faint, distorted melody, like a child's music box playing from a great distance, warped and out of tune. The music box tune grew slightly louder, a chilling lullaby in the dead of night. It was a song he vaguely recognized, a tune from a long-forgotten childhood memory he couldn't quite place. Goosebumps erupted on his arms. "Who is this?" he demanded, trying to sound brave. "What do you want?" The music abruptly stopped. Then, a new sound emerged, a soft, rhythmic scratching. Scritch. Scrate. It sounded like nails dragging slowly across a wooden surface. James's heart leaped into his throat. The sound was so clear, so close. It didn't sound like it was coming from the phone. It sounded like it was coming from inside his apartment. He stood frozen, phone pressed to his ear, his eyes darting around the dark room. The scratching stopped. A new sound began, a faint creak. The sound of his own bedroom door, slowly opening. He wasn't alone. James's eyes were locked on the sliver of darkness widening in his doorway. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The phone was still pressed to his ear, but he wasn't listening to it anymore. His entire being was focused on that door. The scratching sound started again, louder this time, closer. Scrappy. It was coming from the hallway, just outside his room. A shadow fell across the floor. A long, thin silhouette, stretching from the doorway and inching towards his bed. It wasn't human-shaped. It was too tall, too slender, with limbs that seemed to bend at impossible angles. James finally found his voice. A choked gasp. "Who's there?" He wanted to scream, to run, but he was paralyzed by a primal fear. From the phone, a voice finally spoke. It wasn't a human voice. It was a dry, rasping whisper, like dead leaves skittering across pavement. It said just one word, a word that sealed his fate. It said, us. This time, James broke the rule. He answered the call. The line went dead. Sudden silence. The shadow in the doorway took another step into the room. James squeezed his eyes shut, a silent scream trapped in his throat. He wished he had never answered, wished he had just let it ring. But curiosity had been too strong, and now he was about to pay the price. He never saw what came for him in the dark. No one did. James was gone. His friends and family searched for weeks, but it was as if he had vanished into thin air. The only thing the police found was his phone, lying on the bedroom floor. The screen was cracked, and the call log showed one last entry. An incoming call from an unknown number, received at 2:17 a.m. What do you think happened to James, and what would you do if you got the call? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more creepy stories. Sleep tight. Sleep tight. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a story that's been making waves online. A modern-day mystery that feels like it's straight out of a horror movie. It all started with a simple social media challenge, one of those viral trends that everyone jumps on without a second thought. But for a group of friends, this seemingly innocent game turned into a terrifying ordeal that ended in a way no one could have predicted. Let's set the scene. Imagine you're scrolling through your feed, and you see it, the Midnight Mirror Challenge. The rules are simple. Stand in a dark room, hold a condole and chant a specific phrase into a mirror 3 times. Spooky, right? But just a bit of harmless fun. That's what James and his friends thought. They were always up for a laugh, always the first to try the latest trend. So, one Friday night, they decided to give it a go. They gathered in an old, dusty attic, lit a single candle, and started to chant. At first, nothing happened. They laughed it off, feeling a little silly. But then, things started to get weird. A cold draft seemed to sweep through the room, even though all the windows were shut tight. The candle flame flickered violently, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. One of them, Sarah, swore she saw a face in the mirror, not her own, but something pale and distorted. Just for a second, they all got spooked and decided to call it a night, dismissing it as their imaginations running wild. But the strange occurrences didn't stop there. Over the next few days, each of them started experiencing things they couldn't explain. Objects would move on their own, whispers would echo in empty rooms, and they all had the same recurring nightmare of a shadowy figure with no face. They tried to rationalize it, blaming stress or lack of sleep, but a deep sense of dread began to creep in. They were being haunted, not by a ghost, but by the very challenge they had invited into their lives. The game was no longer fun. It was real. The real terror began when they started receiving anonymous messages. Simple, one-word texts. Watching. Waiting. Soon. They blocked the numbers, but new ones would always appear. The group's friendly dynamic started to crumble under the pressure. Accusations flew back and forth. Who was behind this? Was it a sick prank? Or was it something else? Something supernatural that they had unleashed that night in the attic? Fear turned to paranoia, and paranoia began to tear them apart. They were isolated, trapped in a nightmare of their own making, with no one to turn to and nowhere to hide. The next morning, James Carter was gone. He vanished, without a trace. His friends called, his family searched, but it was like he had simply ceased to exist. The police found his phone lying on the cold, grimy floor of a subway station. The screen was dark, but as they picked it up, it lit up with a single notification. A new voicemail had just arrived. The officer played the message, and a cold, distorted voice whispered through the speaker. Now, it's your turn. The mystery of the Midnight Mirror Challenge had just claimed its first victim, leaving everyone else to wonder who would be next. Thanks for watching, and if you have any theories, drop them in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the unexplained. Stay safe out there.